everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today. We're your boys. We always got something to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playalog. And in this one, we're going to be talking about Pete Alonso. His market starting to heat up right now, and it looks to be a three-horse race where the Jays are very much in the picture. We're going to talk about that and what it could mean for this team. But before we do, please make sure to hit that like, smash the subscribe button, and let us know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Now, Pete Alonso is, for a long period of time, or was one of my top targets on free agency in general, but now he is assuredly the best free agent hitter that is available. I mean, you might be able to make an argument for Alex Bregman, but just pound for pound, the home runs that he would provide, Pete Alonso would be huge for the Toronto Blue Jays. And according to Jon Heyman, it's the Jays and it's the Mets, and we are right in this thing.
Yeah, it's likely one of the two teams he reports right now because, as we know, the Mets, obviously they had a long time. There's a long period right there where they were negotiating with Pete Alonso, and they were trying to get him on a nice shorter deal with a lower AAV. The last offer they put out there to Pete Alonso was 3 years, $70 million, and ever since then, Pete Alonso and his camp, being Scott Boras, have kind of backed out of that situation and been looking elsewhere, elsewhere being the Toronto Blue Jays. And, we've been talking for some time right now how the Blue Jays aren't done yet, that they're going to make another move after Anthony Santander, and a lot of people have kind of linked the Blue Jays and Pete Alonso together because there is a little bit of mutual interest between the two teams.
Yeah.
And when the Blue Jays know how important it would be by adding Pete Alonso to this team, that it would get this team back into contention, having a much stronger lineup than we had in the last couple of years. However, it's not all said and done because this could take quite a while. Jon Heyman alludes to right here that it could possibly take till the end of February right now because the Blue Jays and Pete Alonso might be going back and forth. We know that the Blue Jays might be talking with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., taking a little bit of their time to talk with him, and Pete Alonso might be waiting on Blue Jays to have a number for him before inevitably what could happen is he could then return back to the Mets depending on where his market could be.
Well, listen, I want to make things very clear right now. I think that Pete Alonso would prefer to stay in New York Met. And I think that, that just makes sense, right? The guy's lived there, has had his whole career there. They just brought in Juan Soto. They just had a historic run, where they were down horrendously in the first half of the season, then went to the postseason, and he had some big-time moments. He's got fans there. He's got people that love him. So all of it makes sense. But he also needs to get paid. And ultimately, he is going to wait it out and see, will the Mets offer him the contract that he's looking for? Up until this point, the answer has been no. And we, as Toronto Blue Jays fans, we need to cross our fingers and hope that the answer remains no. Because I do believe that if Steve Cohen doesn't decide to budge from his positioning right now, we're in a great spot. Blue Jays have a lot to offer you. I saw a picture on Twitter just earlier today, and it was like, well, if the Toronto Blue Jays get Pete Alonso, the offense would look like this again. And it was a picture of Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Marcus Semien, and Teoscar Hernandez.
Is it the All-Star picture? It might have been.
It might have been. I'm not sure at this point, but it was those four guys, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like, we'd have a legit, like middle of the lineup at this point, and there's something that to hang your hat on there, right? You look at that lineup with Pete Alonso in it, with Anthony Santander. You look at the pitching rotation. You look to the additions in the bullpen, and you start to think, damn, maybe there is a route right now to make it back to the postseason. All that being said, though, this is all contingent on the New York Mets remaining to kind of stay out of this race.
And if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, you need to start picking up the phone and getting this deal done ASAP. Now, I know he might be waiting it out to see if the Mets are going to make a counter offer, but if you're the Blue Jays, you've got him right here.
This is your window.
This is the time. This is the literal window. This is the 1 year where we need to add as much power to this lineup as possible while we have Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. here for at least 2025. But you got to take advantage of this opportunity right now. Not often do we hear that a free agent of Pete Alonso's caliber is open to joining the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, that all could be leverage or whatever, but the reports are true. If he's open to join the Toronto Blue Jays, you need to put down the number that he wasn't getting from the Mets, and you got to go get him right now, because right now it seems like it is going to be a shorter-term deal. We know that for sure. Whatever that money that he's willing to take for that shorter-term deal, you got to offer it right now because you need to capitalize on this chance.
And let me be clear, right? When I said this is the window, I was referring to the fact that with the Mets being flat-footed right now and not being necessarily as aggressive on Pete Alonso as they should be, this is your window to sign him. Because in a couple weeks from now, maybe Steve Cohen's going to feel differently, right? So you have a short-term, I guess, moment right here where you could be the aggressors. The LA Angels are feeling the same way. Right off the top of this thing, I said it was a three-horse race. Now, Jon Heyman didn't bring up the Angels right there, and I do think it is kind of a long shot. However, it was reported by somebody over there at Dodgers Nation that Pete Alonso could take a 4-year deal worth $100 million from the LA Angels. This is what the Angels do. They like to go out and they like to splash their money around and pay for these veterans, and oftentimes it doesn't work out. I would anticipate that that is going to be a last-ditch kind of landing spot for him. You know, if really the Toronto Blue Jays offer isn't anywhere close, or, you know, really the New York Mets offer isn't anywhere close, then maybe he ends up there, just takes that $100 million with a couple opt-outs in it and, you know, like, calls it a day. But let's be completely honest with ourselves, folks. Like, yeah, the Toronto Blue Jays won 74 games last year, but they are still head and tails above the LA Angels, in my opinion. Anyways.
I mean, you could argue the weather's nice, but also you're heading across the country, right? At least Toronto will be somewhere close to New York, which I'm assuming Pete Alonso has been living in for the last 6 years. But, I mean, point right here, this is also a short-term deal. I know it says 4 years, but there's a second year and a third-year opt-out option. Now, Jon Heyman alluded to was that this could end up being like a Cody Bellinger situation, a Matt Chapman situation, where he just goes and gets a high AAV for the first couple years, or at least 1 year, and then has the ability to opt out and try to get that longer-term deal. Like, and if that's the case with the Toronto Blue Jays, again, like, if that means we lose Pete Alonso after this year, I mean, look, that's fine with me because we got to start stacking in the chips right now because we are going to lose Bo Bichette next year. I think we all can agree with that. We're going to lose him. That's the last year with that guy. We're going to lose Chris Bassett. We're going to lose some other assets as well. You got to cash in right now. And plus, it also shows to people like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and your fan base that you're willing to go all in right now.
I also don't think that a long-term deal for Pete Alonso actually makes a lot of sense. Like, I know that we've been doing kind of these mental gymnastics of, okay, well, you bring Big Pete in, and then, well, Guerrero moves to third. And that's, you know, that's assuming that all of that works out, right? Because, you know, you could move Guerrero over to third, and then, you know, after April, after May, it's like, oh, shit, like, this is not working right now. We got to move him back to first. And then it's, you know, well, if you have Pete Alonso here for 5 years, you've effectively just locked in your DH now forever, which isn't necessarily a spot that you want to be in. I think the perfect situation for the Toronto Blue Jays actually is to get him on a 1 year or a 2 year type of deal where it's like, all right, we got you for this amount, we got you for this time right now. Hit a fuckload of home runs with us right now. This still gives us the opportunity and the finances to go out and extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr., because that is a whole other thing, too. If you're giving Pete Alonso $30 million a year or $25 million, what have you, that's money that you're not necessarily paying for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think that you bring him in. I think that you try to do it right now with this team, with this window, with Bo, with Guerrero, and then if he wants to leave next year, fine. We will extend Vladdy instead. That's where I'm at with all this. I like the short term.
Yeah, and again, like how you brought up, like you clog up the DH spot right there. And Pete Alonso said he wants to go play first base, and obviously Vladdy wants to play out there in the field too. It helps him at the plate. And obviously we know that Vladdy isn't necessarily the greatest defender at third base either. So you don't want to clog up the DH spot too much, especially because think about the corner outfielders that we have right now. We have George Springer and we got Anthony Santander.
Exactly.
Eventually those guys need to cycle in the DH spot too. Now, granted, you could move Vlad over to third, but if it's not working defensively, then you find yourself in a little bit of a problem. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for just getting him on a short-term deal and getting it done. But regardless, the Blue Jays need to make a move. Now, there was another report coming out here. I believe it was by Robert Murray. Yes, it was. So Robert Murray came out and talked about the Toronto Blue Jays and their situation right now. And he does believe that the Blue Jays have a better chance of getting Pete Alonso than a Max Scherzer.
Whoa, time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below to join the action. Only available in Ontario. Must be 19 years of older to participate. Please play responsibly. Now, everyone, back to the content.
And take that what you will. I mean, it's all speculation right now. And he believes that just because he knows that, like, that's what the Blue Jays, he believes the Blue Jays have a better chance of winning if they can go out and get a Pete Alonso. So, and if that's the case, if the Blue Jays truly believe that, then again, cycling it all back, you got to go make the move and you got to offer the contract right now. You can't be sitting on your ass and sitting on your hands and not getting the job done.
I completely agree with Robert Murray, man. I mean, ultimately, what does this team need? We still need hitting, even after going and getting Santander. The rotation, yeah, it could be better. Rotation could always be better unless you're the LA Dodgers. I mean, but ultimately, Max Scherzer, I don't think moves the needle as much as 40 home runs from potentially Big Pete would. Like, him batting behind, Guerrero or batting behind Santander, where the hell you want to put? I actually don't even give a shit. Put him wherever, right? Because he is going to mash in that lineup. It would be a game changer for the Toronto Blue Jays. Shout out to those guys over at Talkin' Baseball, Trevor Plouffe and Jake and all those guys. We know that they're not necessarily Blue Jays fans, right? I mean, like, Jake's a big Yankee fan, Trevor,
Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, so they're not Blue Jays fans. But Trevor was coming out and saying, it's like, listen, if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, you get on the phone with Pete Alonso right now, you lock him in for a high average annual value 1-year deal. And now when you start to look at that lineup, now he used the word front runner, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but he was saying it's like you could start to convince yourself that this could be a team that could make a play for the American League East. And yes, that is optimistic, certainly.
Yeah, the American League East, yeah.
But, I mean, I could see it too, right? When you start to go through, it's like, I like him, I like it, right? Bringing in Pete Alonso really does change the game. And if that did happen, like, major credit to Ross Atkins for totally fixing this offense.
Yeah, and like, I know American League East champions would be very far out of the picture. Honestly, I think for a lot of you guys are probably not even thinking about that right now. It's outlandish a lot, but really, wild card in the mix for a wild card is not outlandish at all. I mean, look at the Central right now. Yeah, the Tigers and the Royals made it to the dance last year through the wild card, but like, they really haven't gone out and done a whole lot this winter, right? I know Tigers are in on Alex Bregman, but if they lose him to the Boston Red Sox, then like, really, what have the Tigers done this offseason? And the Royals too. It's like, okay, well, they're kind of just like floating around. Then you look over at the West right now. What are the Mariners doing? The Rangers are still there. They might have a good bounce back. They could bounce back and do some good stuff. But like, really, like, that's kind of it. The Houston Astros have taken a step back. That wild card, other than the Orioles and probably the Boston Red Sox, there really isn't a locked-in team right now for that third spot, maybe second spot. The Blue Jays go out Pete Alonso, maybe add some starting pitching depth. You're right there.
Pete Alonso changes things, folks, and right now the Toronto Blue Jays are finalists to get him. I know that we've heard that word many times before, and it's very triggering to people, but maybe it's different now. You guys let us know in the thoughts, or your thoughts down below, in the comments. Please hit that like button, smash the subscribe button. $3 a month, become a Patreon member. Shout out and thank you to all of our current Patreon members and our YouTube members. You guys are the best.
Guys, thank you so much for watching.
And as always,
go Jays, go!